What up? Welcome to Umbris Fear Manifest's commander deck. What I'm calling this, it's Umbris Clone Manifest because we're taking Umbris, we're doing Umbris things, but then we're also putting clones in the deck so we can make more Umbrises and then have the Umbrises trigger the Umbrises and themselves. It's pretty sick. Let's get into it. Who is Umbris? What does he do? This is a dude from only ever printed Crimson Vow Commander, so he's $9, which sucks. They should reprint him, but they didn't. He's a legendary creature. He's the mere 5 mana 1/1. He gets +1/+1 for each card your opponents own in exile, so you want to exile stuff. And whenever Umbris or another nightmare or horror enters, target opponent exiles cards from top of their library until they exile a land card. So realistically, let's say a player on average is playing 35 lands, they mulligan to 3 lands. If you play 35 horrors and you only ever target one person, you will mill them out. But like, that's not really realistic. If this targeted every player, I think you could have like a really real mill exile deck, but it's only target opponent. So typically I think you're just targeting whoever is gonna probably see the most cards before hitting a land. Also, deck's pretty cheap, so that's cool. I kind of built it in mind, seeing as the Maybeboard is more expensive than the entire deck. But yeah, let's get into it. For artifacts, we want to run ramp because we just want to get our guy out as quickly as possible. So Arcane Signet's in the deck. Blade of Selves is completely irrelevant. It just gives the equipped creature myriad. So if you swing with your commander, it makes 2 more copies of your commander. They both trigger on themselves, and each one also triggers, and your original one triggering on the other one's entering. So you'd get 6 triggers, I think. They die to the legend draw right away, which sucks, but that's not really why you care about it. Conjurer's Closet is just a flicker card. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile a target creature and then return it to the battlefield under your control. This will just re-trigger your commander. Dimir Signet, Felwar Stone, both just ramp rocks for 2 mana. I'm really onto the 2 mana rocks right now. I've been kind of down on 3 rocks. Mimic Vat, 3 mana. Whenever a non-twin creature dies, you can exile it. If you do, you can return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. So this means you can only really ever have 1 card exiled with Mimic Vat. But you can pay 3 tap it to create a token that's a copy of the card exiled. With it, it gains haste, and then you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. This means you can pay 3 tap it, copy a clone, copy a commander. You can even copy opponent's creatures, which is really cool. Mirror Box. You're playing this because of the first line of text that says the legend rule doesn't apply. Each legendary creature gets +1/+1, and then each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. Yeah, you really only want it for the legend rule thing because it does suck when you just play like a clone, target your commander, and you just have to sack the clone after because obviously, yeah. Or maybe you'd want to sack the commander if you have enough mana to recast it. Banner Monicon to double the ETB triggers for horrors with your commander. Soul Ring because of ramp. Talisman of Dominance because of ramp. And that's it. Let's go into the creatures. There's a bunch of creatures, mainly because there's a lot of doubles. There's also some cool horrors that are in the deck. Owl's Spawn is one of them. He's a 3 mana 2/3 fish horror. Ooh. He's Flash and Ward 2. Whenever a creature entering the battlefield under opponent's control causes a triggered ability of a creature you control to trigger, you may copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. There's just a good kind of like generic, kind of hate, kind of, I don't know what you'd consider this, but yeah, it's just a good trigger to have. If an opponent's playing a really strong deck with strong ETBs, you can just copy those ones. So that's cool. Oh, cause the ability of a triggered creature that you control. I think this is a good card. I haven't figured it out, but it's also just a 3 mana 2/3 and it has a horror in the name, which is why it's in the deck. Automaton Soldier, 6 mana. It enters as a copy. This is one of the clones, except this is one of the better ones, so it doesn't enter legendary, which is nice, and is an artifact with myriad. So that means you're keeping the swings, which is whatever. The main part is that it's not legendary, which is very, very good. Kaldis Assassin, same thing, 6 mana clone. The 6 mana clones are typically worse because there's just a 4 mana one that says copy target creature. The 6 mana ones will just have additional artifacts. So this one, or additional effects. This one is it enters the battlefield tapped as a copy of a creature on the battlefield, and it has when this creature enters, destroy up to one target creature with the same name. So this is also just 6 mana removal if you want it to be. You can flash in as your commander, you can flash in as a threat an opponent has, and destroy destroy it. It's a good card. Captain Ingathrod. This is just like a very solid commander in itself. So horrors you control have menace, which is nice for swinging. And whenever a horror you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills that many cards. Very easy to do with your commander because he gets very big very fast. And at the beginning of your end step, choose target artifact or creature card in an opponent's graveyard that was put there from their library this turn. Put it onto the battlefield under your control. So this does a little bit of theft. Makes your horrors easier to hit enemies because they have menace. And they mill when you hit them, which you get one of those cards back. And when you have like a 18 or 20 power commander and you're not killing the guy on the spot, it's a pretty big chance that you're going to get something you can play at your end step. Clever Impersonator is again one of the better ones. You can have a copy as enters a copy of a non-land permanent, so this also hits artifacts and enchantments that your opponents can control as well. Clone, this is the OG, just enters as a copy of any creature, typically your commander. Copy Crook, 4 mana, same thing. Except it has whenever this creature attacks, it connives. So that's cool. Which is just draw 1, discard 1. If you discard a non-land, you put a 1/1 on them. Which not really ever gonna happen. It's just a 4 mana clone. Evil Twin, 4 mana clone. Except it also has if you choose like an opponent's creature, you can pay to mirror tap and destroy a creature with the same name. So that's cool. If you flicker them after that, you can bring them in and copy another target creature, do the same thing. Gigantoplasm, 4 mana clone, except it has X. This creature has base power and toughness XX. Very cool. Grazilax, Illithid Scholar. Whenever a creature you control becomes blocked, you may return it to its owner's hand, which is nice for recasting your commander if you want to. And then whenever one or more creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So it draws, it helps you swing safely, and even lets you recast your horrors after if they get blocked if you want. Grail Philosopher is a 3 mana 1/4. At the beginning of your... When it enters, and at the beginning of your upkeep, there we go. Each horror you control gains all activated abilities of target artifact and opponent controls until the end of the turn. You may spend blue mana as though or mana of any color to activate those abilities. This can just mean like you play him on 3. On your next upkeep, when you have 3 mana, you copy a Soul Ring, and now he's just a Soul Ring mana dork, and then you can just play your commander on 4, or earlier, depending on how you ramped. But yeah, so it can become a mana dork. It can steal, not steal, I guess, but copy very strong artifact abilities. Massacre Worm is just a good card. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, they lose 2 life, and when it ETBs, it can board wipe dorks. So that's nice. I think this is also just a very solid card. You could easily swap this out for like another clone or a horror. Mirror Hall Mimic. You can have it enter as a copy of any creature on the battlefield except it's a spirit. You choose your commander, obviously. Now, obviously Legend Rule applies. You would kill this, but then you can disturb it for 5. To enchant a creature at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of the enchanted creature except it's a spirit. And then if this would go away, it goes to the exile instead. But realistically, this is 4 mana, make a clone, do the thing twice, and then on a later turn you can pay 5 to just keep making copies every upkeep if your commander's still alive. Nightmare Shepherd, flying whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you can exile it. If you do, make a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1, and it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. Unfortunately, I don't really think that matters, the nightmare part at least, but it does mean, let's say you clone your commander, it dies because of Legends Rule, you can exile the clone, create a 1/1 copy of the clone the commander, do it again. It's more value for your commander. Phantasmal Image is a 2 mana clone, except it's an illusion, and it has when this creature becomes target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Doesn't really matter because it's just dying to Legends Rule right away, but it's 2 mana for a clone, so that's cool. Phyrexian Metamorph is essentially 3 mana. It can enter as a copy of a artifact or creature, so it also has artifacts. It's just a 3 mana clone most of the time though. Sakashima's Protege is a 6 mana 3/1 Flash Cascade, and it enters as a clone essentially. But then the cool part is it can cascade into another clone, so that's fun. Silent Hall Creeper is just kind of a horror that can't be blocked, and it either gets 2/1s, draws a card, or copies another creature when it deals combat damage. Now, I don't think that would trigger your commander, but that's fine. It already gets the trigger. You could copy something else that's strong on the battlefield. Sire Stagnation is not a horror or does anything for your commander. I just saw this card, and it's 6 mana. Whenever land enters battlefield under opponent's control, they exile top 2 cards to the library, and you draw 2 cards. This is a very strong draw engine. Obviously, the exiling also helps to make your commander bigger, which is cool. It's just an interesting card. I like it in the deck. I don't think it's required if you want to go more on theme, but yeah. Sludge Monster, 5 mana, 5/5. When it enters or attacks, you put a slime counter on another creature, and non-horror creatures with slime counters lose all abilities, and they become 2/2s. This is a cool pseudo removal card, but not really, because they're still 2/2s, and they just like swing into you and you block if you don't want to take the damage, and they die. But yeah, this can just stop abilities of strong ability creatures, which is nice. We got Spark Double, which is one of the better clones. It comes in, it clones, it gets +1/+1 counter, and it's not legendary. So it kind of does everything you want. Thing the Ice is a surprisingly good card in this deck. So it's a 2 mana 0/4 horror, which is nice because you can play it, do the legend, or do the commander thing. But it enters with 4 ice counters on it, and whenever you cast instant or sorcery, you remove an ice counter, and once you remove all of them, you flip it into this 7/8. Let's say flip or exile and bring back. Transform. Okay, yeah, flip it. And this is just return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hand. So it's like a board wipe because you're pretty much only playing horrors and it's one-sided. Uchulon. This is one of the cooler cards I found while playing this deck. I actually really like this. So its power is equal to the number of crabs, oozes, and horrors you control, which is cool. Star 4, I mean, can attack, but 4 toughness is a little low. But I think the cool part is at the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target creature card from an opponent's graveyard. If you do, make a token that's a copy of Uchulon. And the copies will also trigger that at their next end step, so like a turn later. It's also triggering your commander, so it can just get like really, really big if someone is putting a lot of creatures into their graveyard somehow. Maybe there's a mill card, maybe you play Captain Indothrod and you're hitting people. But yeah, this can get very out of hand if it's not dealt with quickly. Not as out of hand as something like a Scoot Swarm, but still really, really strong. Undercover Operative, 4 mana, it enters, it's a clone, except it enters with a shield counter. So you can have this enter as your commander. Yeah, Legends rule happens. You just get rid of your commander because this is your commander with a shield counter on it. So it's just better. Yeah, this is a good card. This is a 4 mana clone, except it has plot for 3. So you can play it, play your commander, play this, do the thing right away. Pretty cool. Vizier of Many Faces, 4 mana, it's a clone. Surprise, surprise. If it's embalmed, it's a white zombie in addition to its other types. Yeah, an embalm is, I think you can bring it back from the graveyard for that much, or you exile, I don't know. It doesn't say. We'll never know. All of Stolen Identity is a 4 mana clone, except it's a wall and has Defender. You also tap the copied creature, it doesn't untap, as long as Stolen Identity is on the board. Realistically, you just swing with your commander, you play this, you keep your commander tapped, and then Legends Rule happens, this thing dies. At your next upkeep, you still just get your commander back. It can also keep a creature that your opponents control tapped, which is nice. That's the cool part of it, clones. Wharf Infiltrator, this is just a horror that can attack for 1 because it has Skulk, which means can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. When it deals combat damage, you draw 1. You may draw 1 if you do discard 1, and when you discard a creature, you can pay 2 to make a 3/2 horror. So this does your commander thing, can hit to cycle you cards, which is nice because the deck can be a little bricky, and can also pay 2 to make a horror to trigger your commander when that's it. On to the enchantments. Endless Evil, 3 mana. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of an enchanted creature, except it's a 1/1. When the enchanted creature dies, if it was a horror, you can return this card to your hand, so you can keep playing it. Leyline of the Void, because you care about cards in exile, so you would pretty much just always want this. Yeah, it's a good card. And then Mere Mockery, 2 mana, same thing. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, you can put a token on the battlefield. It's a copy of the creature, and then you exile it at the end of combat. The token doesn't come in attacking, which I think is kind of weird about this card, but it's just a clone. Onto the instance. We're running a few instants and sorceries, kind of just because of the thing in the ice, to reliably get rid of the counters, because it's a 7/8, which is good. But yeah, Arcane Counterspell, Cackling Counterpart, make a token that's a copy of creature you control. Dark Ritual to ramp out your commander quickly. Displace to flicker essentially like your commander and a clone. I believe you can do this in a way where you have your commander, you cast a clone. With the clone becoming your commander, it has an ETB effect. In response to the effect before the Legends rule, you can displace both of them to do it again to get even more triggers off before the clone dies. I believe that's a thing. If it's not a thing, let me know in the comments. Ghostly Flicker, exile 2 things, return them. It's just a blink. Infernal Grasp is removal. Negate is a counterspell. Reality Shift and Resculpt are both just removal cards. Sea Double is a 4-mana counterspell, but if an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard, you can also make a token that's a copy of a target creature. Unfortunately, this spell can't be copied, but I think that's fine. Withering Torment, destroy target creature, enchantment, you lose 2 life. This is just a very solid card. Onto the Planeswalkers, we're just running 2 of the Ashioks because they work well with the deck. Spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library, which is a little nice hate piece. In casual, this is pretty relevant. The only searching that's going on is like fetch lands or like, you know, your Terramorphic Expanses if you're talking really casual. You can also just -1 to target player, put the top 4 cards of their library into their graveyard, and then exile each opponent's graveyard. So it's a little bit of graveyard hate to make your commander bigger. Ashiok Nightmare Muse is a 5-mana, comes in with 5, which is pretty crazy. +1, you can make a 2/3 Nightmare creature token, and whenever the creature attacks or blocks, each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of their library. So that sets up your commander. You can -2 to return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then that player's exiles a card from their hand. So a little bit of hand hate. And you can -7 to cast up to 3 face-up cards your opponents own from exile without paying their mana cost. So if nobody deals with Ashiok and you're, you know, constantly exiling things from your opponent's libraries, you can get some pretty big hits off of it. On the Sorceries, Extinction Event, choose odd or even, exile each creature with converted mana cost to the chosen value. Because you're pretty much just copying your commander, it's mainly CMC3, so you're choosing odd. Extract from Darkness, 5 mana, each player mills 2, then you put a creature card from a graveyard on the battlefield under your control. You can just choose your own clones if you want to, and then clone your commander. You can choose a strong creature that an opponent milled. It's a pretty good card. Feed the Swarm is removal. Flood of Tears is 6 mana, return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If you return 4 or more non-token permanents you control this way, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you bounce a lot of your own cards to your hand, like mana rocks and stuff, you can just shoot out your commander, then also play your mana rocks, for example. Ironic Kisses, Vile Duplication, create a token that's a copy of a target creature you control, except the token has flying and it isn't legendary, which is nice because that's a really, really great thing to say on any clone card. Night's Whisper, 2 mana, draw 2, lose 2 life, because I think the deck needs a little bit of card draw. Ponder's in here as well, same reason. Quasi Duplicate, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control and has Jumpstart, which means you can cast it from your graveyard by paying the cost and discarding a card. Rite of Replication, obviously 4 mana, make a copy of something, or 9 mana, make 5 copies, which is just a lot of stacks for your commander, or triggers. Sign of Blood, another draw 2, lose 2 life. And I mean, I'll quickly go through the lands, but Juka Bog is in here because you're playing a black deck, might as well. Command Beacon is pretty important because your commander costs 5 if it's constantly being removed, because it's like, I don't know, with 17 people get rid of it. It is nice to get it back for a little bit cheaper with Command Tower. Besides that, very simple, very cheap land base. No fetches, nothing like that. Rogue's Passage, because you can just swing for game with your commander. I did think about putting in more cards that made it unblockable. I think that's a very real thing you can do with the deck. I just wanted to fully focus on all the cool clones and horrors that you can play. Path of Ancestry too, because obviously the deck is pretty much all horrors. But yeah, let's go to the Maybeboard. Maybeboard is way more expensive than the main deck, which is pretty funny. Just because it has much better cards in it that I think you could very, very easily slot into the deck. I just didn't want to, because of the price. So Ancient Stellar Spawn is a 3-mana 3/3. Each spell you cast as a demon, horror, or nightmare costs 1 less. It's just reduce your commander by 1. And whenever you cast a spell, if the amount of mana spent to cast it was less than its mana value, target opponent loses life equal to the difference. It's kind of not that great. It just reduces your commander by 1. It's pretty whatever in the deck. Helm of the Host is probably one of the better cards you can put into the deck. At the beginning of combat, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary and it gains haste. So you're just making a lot of your commander every turn. This is a very, very good card. And they don't die because they're not legendary. Hullbreaker Horror, this is just a horror. This is the only reason why it's in the sideboard. It was originally in the deck, then I'm like, it's just like a good blue card that has the typing that I want it for the deck. So I don't think it was cool enough to keep in the deck. Reflections of Lit Jara is a 5-mana enchant. As this enchantment enters, choose a creature type. Obviously you choose horror. And whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. I think I realized that when you cast a clone, it doesn't actually become a horror in this as a spell. It's only when it enters. So this is a lot worse. You could play a card like Kindred Discovery though, which I believe does work in that way. Reflections of Progenitus. This is just a way to exile all cards from graveyards. That's the only reason why you play this. Roaming Throne, you name horror, you get double your commander triggers, which is crazy good. And then obviously you have the few Sakushimas that are really, really expensive. Actually, the Imposter's not that bad. But Sakushima, the Thousand Faces, and Sakushima Student, both very expensive clones that are good. In fact, I'd say they're probably better than a lot of the clones in the deck. But for the price, I don't think you need to include them. There's way more than enough like decent clones in these colors to play. Spellskite is a horror, and you can also pay blue to change target spell or ability to Spellskite. So there's a little bit of protection for your commander. Also triggers your commander. Yeah, it's a good card. I just didn't really want to put it in the deck because it's kind of lame. Web of Inertia. I think this card's really cool. So it's 3 mana. At the beginning of each opponent's combat phase, that player may remove a card in his or her graveyard from the game. If they don't, creatures he or she controls can attack you this turn. So this is just a way, realistically, this just pumps your commander by 3 every turn cycle. I mean, if they really want to keep a creature in their graveyard or a card in their graveyard, then cool. They just can't attack you, which is really cool. Really nice for protection. Let's quickly go to the Rex, see what we got. We got Tasha's. I guess if you want to go more into mill, you could play Tasha's, you could play Maddening Cacophony. I did see a lot of the decks and like a lot of cards in these types of decks are just running mill. A defending player mills 10 cards. Whenever a player mills. But yeah, I think this deck is very cool. Yeah, that's it. I think clones are really cool. I think there's a lot of really cool things you can do with clones. I played in a 2-headed giant tournament recently, and I'm like, what if you just had one player play a full clone deck? That'd be pretty funny. Didn't do that. Just played Narset instead and won, but yeah. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back next week with another deck. I don't know what it'll be. I have a cool Titania build that I'm building. As cool as Titania can be, it's the one that becomes big stompy. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back next week. Bye-bye.